Okay. Shush. So you guys on the broadcast right now, coming up, we just had an amazing conversation with two of the biggest comedy producers in the business right now. Now we're going to talk a little bit more to Royale Watkins. You guys, this guy, a career that spans about 25 years, has worked
30 plus now.
30 plus.
Yeah.
30 plus. I don't know how people, feel about
Look,
it.
you see all of this gray hair? This is 30 plus years of this business now. I can't even.
Beautiful hair. Beautiful hair.
That is inspiring.
So Royale, you guys, to all of our watchers, listeners, viewers, Royale has done stand-up, done television, done live production. In the days of the early shift in technology, he began a phenomenon called mixtape comedy in New York at Gotham, trying to stream on Ustream. I remember that from the beginning, Royale. And to also being a director, co-director on Comedy Central, on Centric TV, just so many. Like I could read the list here. It's just a long list. Like Kevin Hart's Halftime House Party, Cedric the Entertainer, Live from the Ville, The Game Dating, All Def Comedy Presents, Robert Powell, Tyree Elaine, Gerald Kelly. Like we could go on and on. Little Rel Howery, Relevant. Centric comedy. It goes and it goes and it goes. And even now, you guys, as we prepare for this show, I'm trying to get pictures from Ricky, and he's like, "I'm in a writer's room. I cannot text right now." So light flex and still hard at work. So
here's a writer's room photo, right? Right, Royale. This is writer's room.
That's my primary writer's room right there in my living room.
Yeah.
Is that your brooding? Is that the way you brood?
Oh,
You're
wrong
just
thing.
like-
okay. Oh, that's we don't need that one.
That's a new show. Yeah, the wrong slide.
I'm sorry. I was showing parts of my computer that are incognito. I'm sorry.
Sorry, dude.
All right. So, let's take that out.
Again, welcome to the broadcast. Thank you for coming in and hanging with us and Ricky and talking to all the folks on the air. So I got questions that I'm sure some people have heard answers to before, but like Royale, just truth be told, when did you decide you wanted to be a comic? How did you get started?
Look, I think that very early on, being one of the two middle children in a family of 14, one of the things that I was starved for was attention, right? And so I think it started in school where I was like, all right, if I act out in my home, it's going to be problematic. And so if I act out in school, which is, the normal route of being a class clown, it's going to be less problematic. And as early as the second grade, I remember just being the class clown, myself and another guy named Richard Guy. And, we had this thing called the circus parade. And my second grade teacher told us if we did not cut up in class, she would allow us to be the clowns in the circus parade. And the circus parade, which was just as all of these kids dressed up as zoo animals or whatever we were, our class we had a parade going through other classes in our elementary school. And me and my buddy Richard Guy were the clowns. And so we just got to be as funny as we needed to be, right? And early on, I just paid more attention to the responses that we got and how, like, laughter was such a powerful thing to be able to share with people. And as I rose through the school ranks, I continued to use school as the place where I kind of worked on that. And from middle school to high school, all the way up through college, I just remember being focused on comedy. And in college, I had a buddy, Al Dean Pearson, who was he was working on becoming a professional comic. And so he was much more polished at what he was doing. But we would rag on each other in this game room. We would sit around and play cards, during the lunch breaks or whatever. And we would rag or snap or joan on each other. And I watched him take these same jokes that we used at the table, and he hosted our homecoming comedy show or one of the events that we had. And afterwards, I talked to him and found out that he got paid a substantial amount of money for hosting that show and using that same material. I think he made like $1,500. This was years ago.
Oh,
and
wow.
so it just the amount of money that he made for that one event as a college student just like really made it click for me that, oh shit, people actually get paid for this for real. And
Wow.
so I actually happened to be in college with a young lady who, Tony Woods, I mean, if you know Dave Chappelle, then if you watch the Mark Twain Awards, you'll understand the importance of Tony Wood in Dave Chappelle's life and DC comedy. So I'm a DC comic, right? Dave probably started a year or two before I did. But Tony Woods is the person that influenced a whole gang of us in DC. And his girlfriend at the time just happened to be in my chemistry class. And so she said, you're interested in stand-up comedy. You should meet my boyfriend. And I was like, who's your boyfriend? She said, Tony Woods. I was like, oh my God. Okay, cool. She introduced me. He put me on stage the first time and started mentoring me early. And that was kind of my point of entry into stand-up comedy, like from college, like into that first steps into doing it professionally.
Got it. So then what brought you, how did you get to LA? How did you get out here?
So from DC, I started going up to New York because David transitioned up to New York. There was a couple of us who, like I said, were a few years older than him and was chaperoning him up when he had to go up because he was too young to go by himself. And so because of that, you started getting these small exposures to New York stand-up. And, New York was the Mecca. That's where you wanted to be, even before, because LA was about being in film and television. But New York was about becoming a real stand-up comic. So moved up to New York first because I had auditioned for Def Comedy Jam and gotten Def Jam. And performed on Def Jam and kind of, hit a gusher and got a whole lot of attention real quickly, got on tour. And then went out and toured with Def Comedy Jam for a year and a half, 2 years, the original Def Comedy Jam tour. So it was me, Bernie Mac, Bill Bellamy, Adele Givens, Joe Torre, Reggie McFadden, and Free. And so because of that tour, it kind of fast-tracked me. I moved up to New York. I moved into Reggie McFadden's apartment in Brooklyn because he was transitioning out to LA. So spent some time in New York. And then eventually I was like, all right, well, the next step is to move out to LA next. And actually moved in with Reggie McFadden for the first year that I was here. Got a deal with NBC when I went up to the Montreal Comedy Festival for my sitcom, which was short-lived. But all of those pieces kind of moved together really seamlessly for me.
Gosh.
Wow.
Wait,
how old was Dave Chappelle, since you say you chaperoned him? How old was he?
He was 16 at the time.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
And you guys
Dave
were like
15, 16, starting to transition up to New York. And I was 17, 18, probably 18. I think I'm like maybe 2.5 years older than Dave, something like that. So, but he was younger.
He was younger. Wow. So you have built a portfolio, not only as a stand-up, but then you transitioned into producing. But tell us, I think there are people on here, and I know for some of us, writing, like how do you balance? Because I know you still perform. Yes,
I still perform. So my journey has been stand-up comedy first, actor. Again, I've done enough work acting my own sitcom, Speed 2, Delivers from Eva, My Girlfriend's Back, right? I've done enough acting work, but the acting work slowed down for me. And the reality here's a lot of the acting slowed down for me because when my youngest son was born, he was born on the autism spectrum. And so my wife and I, right, shifted all of our attention to making sure he had the resources he needed to blossom into the young man that he is today, which is a sophomore at Hampton University who speaks 2 languages and is just kind of pushed beyond all of the challenges of autism, right? He actually does stand up as well. So we were working on a joke a couple of days ago about him being autism.
That's dope.
He's what, and so for me at the time, I just wasn't even concerned about or even focused on the business period, let alone acting. And so things had slowed down for me, right? When we shifted on making sure he had the support that he needed, things slowed down. And if you're in this business and you're busy and you step away from it for a second and you look up, the business will be 10 feet down the road, right?
Right.
And if you look down again, you'll think it's 10 feet, now it's 20 feet. And so in that regard, I had to go, all right, well, what can I do to bring value to the business enough that I can get back into it some kind of way? And for me, it was like, all right, I'm still doing stand up, but I also have enough value in what I'm doing on stage in terms of the stories that I'm telling, that Dwayne Martin at the time was on All of Us, Will and Jada's show.
Yeah.
And the blended family dynamic that I was living through and talking about on stage matched the storylines that they were doing on the show. And Dwayne was like, hey, can you come over here on the show and help punch up some stuff and get in the writer's room to help us with some of these stories to bring something that's authentic and real to the show. And so that became my point of entry in terms of writing for television. And then when I started writing for television, it just was like, all right, this is another incredible tool that I can add to my toolbox, because at the end of the day, my personal thing is, or my big thing is, right, I consider myself more a Swiss Army knife in the comedy space than anything else. It's like, if somebody says this is what I need done, I don't want to be the guy in the room that says, oh, well, I can't work because I only do stand-up. I'm a purist. It's like, nah, I do way more than stand-up, right? I write, I produce, I direct. And if I can't do it, then I'm going to figure out how to do it so that I can stay employed, and so that more than staying employed, so that I can continue to blossom and grow as an artist and human being. I think the thing, if you look back at the past generation of entertainers, when you look at the Ella Bonds and the Mounts Mableys and Anthony, you're exactly right. The versatility thing is what I'm speaking to, is all of those people didn't do just one thing. They acted, they sang, they danced, they learned how to play the piano, they picked up an instrument, they learned a second language. And so, I mean, it's real, right? And so the thing that I see now in a lot of young artists is that they get stuck, right? They get stuck. My biggest thing, I love this word, is pivot. Is like, because if one door closes, you can stand there all day long going, is this door going to open again or not? And you'll be stuck. But if you can pivot to the next thing, even if you have to learn how to do it, there's so many courses on YouTube. There's so many people that you can get in touch with to go, hey, can you teach me how to play guitar? Can you teach me how to play piano? And nobody says you have to know how to do it well. Right? But you at least have to give yourself an opportunity to do it.
The basics. Yes.
Not just guitar.
I have to ask you this. This is who was the first opportunity you got to direct with? You have several directing credits. Who
So the first directing opportunity I got was with Lil Rel.
Okay.
I produced a bunch of stand-up comedy specials just because it was like the natural progression of things put me in a space where, all right, I gotta, it slowed down for me. I'm not selling tickets as a stand-up comic. I'm not making money on the road. One of the things that I think really hurt me is that when I did Def Comedy Jam, again, I was very young and I got on the tour, and it allowed me to kind of skip a grade, so to speak, right? So in the comedy game, I like to think that I went from the 10th grade straight to the 12th grade. And I missed the opportunity to do shows like Comic View and some of those other shows and build an audience and go out and tour and play that Chitlin Club circuit. I just missed that. Right. And so because I missed it, I missed the opportunity to build the kind of relationship like comics like Bruce and Lavelle Crawford and Carol Underwood have with those audiences, which is super duper personal. Right. Audiences across this country are, that Chitlin circuit are always going to show up for Mike Epps. Right. Because he's traveled this country enough times, be it by car, bus, plane, or however, and had enough engagement with those people that they feel like he's family. And when they feel like you're family, they got to show up whenever you come to town.
Yes, sir.
And so because I missed that, at a certain point, I realized that, I'm not out here on the road selling tickets. I honestly don't want to go out on the road and have to start from scratch in that regard. But one thing that I can do, because I have all of these relationships, is I can produce comedy. I have taste, I have the relationships, and I have the know-how. And so I was like, well, let me focus on producing comedy. And I got some opportunities that allowed me to produce big comedy specials. And because I built those relationships with talent, right, I'll call Cedric, call DL, call all of these comics and employ them. And they watch me, right? It's one thing when your name is a credit, but when your peers show up because you call them and ask them to be a part of production, and they watch you actually put the entire production together in the same way that Ricky's talking about, right? They go, oh, shit, Royale he's not just a comic. He actually knows what he's doing. He knows how to build comedy productions. So then they start looking at you different and the conversation changes. And so, and the conversation just changes from you as the producer, because now with that skill set, you feel confident picking up the phone and calling people and saying, hey, if you want to do a special, right, let me produce and direct it. And you are backed by the experience that they've been a part of one of your productions. So there's an inherent trust built in the conversation. So you're not talking about some shit you can do. You're talking about some shit y'all have already done together. Now you just want to do it again differently. What you're now saying is, I want the entire check to come through my company, and I want to be the person quarterbacking the whole play for you.
Wow.
So Laurel was actually the first person that gave me the opportunity to direct his special. And the person who was my producing and directing partner, Rich Slansker, he was the director that I used for all of my productions. So what I did was ask him to step in and make sure that I was doing everything that I needed to do to deliver the product that he would have delivered, right? If he was hired. So I got to kind of stand on his feet at the dance a little bit, but also, right, be the person going, all right, here's my vision. I just need you to make sure that I execute this vision without fucking up, fucking up the buyer's money, so to speak.
Got you. So we have a couple of segments, or actually one segment left. But as we want to know, do you want to stay with us? We have because I got maybe one more question for you, but it's called Idiot of the Week. And so if you want to stay with us,
actually, we're doing Ask Reddit of the Week.
Oh, Ask Reddit of the Week.
Yeah, we shifted. We shifted.
So it was. Oh no. So but would you like to stay with us until we close down at 10, or you got one? Or how you feeling? Because you came in, you've been a champion.
So here's the thing. I would love to hang out. The unfortunate, well, not unfortunate, is that I'm employed writing on a TV show right now. And so I'm usually up at 5 o'clock in the morning, 5:30, just because I have to go out and exercise first before I start my day. And, and I have to be able to have a conversation with my wife before we go to sleep at night. So
yes,
as much as I would love, and I'm not, usually I do this at my house, but April is doing a podcast as well. So she has the house at the space at the house, and I'm here at my office, which is away from the house. So I actually have to drive home.
Okay.
Right.
So
I did notice the office wall, and you know what? When a guy like me with a beard calls when we have that many Post-it notes, do you know what we call it when a guy with a beard like me has it?
I don't know what.
It's called a manifesto.
Oh, Lord!
Get out! Get out!
Can you pick a favorite thing to do? Is that possible between stand up, writing?
No.
Yep. Okay.
No. I mean, listen. Stand up. I stand slightly corrected. Stand up comedy will absolutely always be my first love.
Okay.
But the reality is all of these, the producing, the directing, acting, they're like different children in my family. So just because the stand up came first, I mean,
still got to spread the love around. You got to spread the
biological
love.
son, and then the rest.
Listen, I absolutely love being on camera, and the thing that I struggle with right now is that, right, I'm not on camera as much as I would love to be back on camera, just because as an actor, I think I bring something to storytelling that is special, and I just want more opportunities to do that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We'll write it and we will come. Whatever it is, write it and we will come.
Well, that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing right now. That's the beauty of me, again, learning as much as I've learned, is that you get to a space where it's not about reaching out to people and asking permission, right? You build the resources you need for yourself to create the product and put it out. There's again, there's so many free platforms to put out content, and when you learn how to do it with what you have, nobody can ever tell you no. Nobody else can ever tell you you can't.
Yeah.
When you learn to do it with the resources that you have, they say, like, do the best you can with what you have.
Yep.
Right? Is create art with what you have. Simple storytelling. Simple storytelling.
Simple storytelling. All right. Well, we want to have you back at some point because we want to talk about comedy albums. Like you're saying, all like we want to. I don't know. Like there's just all these things in our heads. We are so blessed and grateful that you came and spent time with us, Royale. And what a great night with you and Rick.
I'm blessed to be here. I thank you, Dana. Of course, you know what I mean. We go way back. So I'm excited to see you continuing to grow what you're doing. And that you now have the support of the team and the folks around you is even more meaningful and special. But anytime I can be of a resource or any other thing, don't hesitate to reach out to me because you have that relationship.
Yes.
Amen. Thank you.
Nice.
Thank you. Woo! All right, guys.
Thank you.
Blessings. I'll be well. Continue to grow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Royale. Thank you.